So let's start with the overview. And so a lot of data collected in CalPads is dictated by legislation, right? We have funding and accountability. And so, some of the key legislation that drives the data collection or the specific data elements in Fall-1 are the local control funding formula, identifying students that are disadvantaged or English learners, as Kyron will talk about, is a key element. So even though if you're participating in a national school lunch program, you're authorized to provide your entire student body free and reduced lunch, identifying who's actually eligible is still important. And Kyron will talk about that in a moment. The Every Student Succeeds Act kind of reauthorized the No Child Left Behind Act, right? And so there's accountability measures with the ESSA that we have to meet. And then the Individuals with Disabilities Act plays a key role. When we talk about integrating the Students with Disability data collection in CalPads a couple of years ago, it was in large part to meet the requirements of the Individuals with Disabilities Act. So important dates. So Census Day is October 6th. And if you're new, all that means is when you're looking at your reports in November and December, we're not looking at current day. We're looking at where the student was enrolled on October 6th. What was the English language status of your student on October 6th? Which programs were the student eligible for or on October 6th, right? Nothing's due on Census Day. Nothing necessarily has to be submitted by Census Day. It's the day that all your data is reflective of, right? The SIM is on October 19th. So if we're going in a calendar fashion, October 19th is the CalPads information meeting. Registration is currently available for it. It's been condensed. It used to be a 3-hour event. Now it's planned to be an hour and a half. And that's because the CDE and Brandy in particular is doing quarterly meetings by region. And so, I think it'd be beneficial. I think you'll be able to retain more in this year's version of the SIM. So please register if you haven't already. And then the initial certification deadline is December 17th. We'll revisit this date several times throughout today's training, but this is the date you're expected to have approved your data. This is the date that the submission should be complete, certification errors should have been eliminated, and all your reports should have been reviewed throughout your organization. The final deadline, right, after you make amendments, after the SELPA reviews your students with disability data, January 28th is the final deadline, right? Nothing else can change. You can't call us in March and say, I made a mistake. What's on January 28th will last for perpetuity. And then you have Census Day again, that's just October 6th. If you're new, the first Wednesday in October is always Census Day. Your Fall-1 and Fall-2 reports are always reflective of the information as it was on this date. And so I think the last slide I'm going to have for you all right now is the fall data reported. And this is just a quick summary of the data reported. I'm pausing because there's a great opportunity for me to pull up a document. The fall data reported for Fall-1, one of the key things is always your annual enrollment count. And this is your active enrollments as of October 6th. Then the count of specific subgroups. So Kyron's going to identify the subgroups that we collect and how that information is reported, how those students are identified. And so a count of each specific subgroup, how many individuals belong to that subgroup. One of those subgroups is the ELs from English language acquisition status, but all English language acquisition statuses counts are reported as of Census Day. A count of your students in language instruction programs, that's relatively new. A count of the special education program plan types for students with disability, whether they are in IEP, ISP, IFSP, or even those students that are pending evaluation. and then a count of students exited and have resulted in dropout. So previously, we used to have graduates and dropouts as far as Fall-1, but because of the California School Dashboard and the cohort for your 4-year cohort for those students in high school, we've moved the dropouts to coincide with graduates to coincide with the end of year calendar. And so dropouts remain, and we'll talk about that and the new report that helps you identify those students. And then lastly, we have a count of students identified as disadvantaged for purpose of the LCFF formula. And before we go to Kyron, you don't have to rely on us. It's kind of a little distracting and kind of slow going through that because I was trying to pull this up on the side. This here is on the CalPAD system documentation screen. You could find this document if you're in the CalPAD user manual under the references tab. It's the CalPAD's file specification Word document. Forms, this is an Excel spreadsheet. This is the Word document. And it's a little bit different, but if you want to find the data being collected before training, you can always go here. And if you type Control F and come over to headings, you'll have this menu on the left. And I just go to Fall-1 and I can see all the data collected. You see that we kind of made this a concise version, right? There's no way anyone wants to look at all these bullets on a slide. And so this would give you greater detail. If you're preparing something for your administration about the data that you need to provide, you can go to Fall-1. In advance of Fall-2, it's there as well as the end of year. So this is a reason to become familiar with this particular document. I find LEAs don't use it as much as the forms, but it's great. And there's several other key things in here we could talk about, but I just thought it would be a good opportunity to kind of tell you as a trainer, as I'm preparing for a submission, I always want to review the CalPAD CFS Word document and try to find out if there's any changes to the data collection, right? And so this is a good place to go. You can see there's students included. Okay, Kyron.